Welcome to The Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thank you for listening, sharing, and subscribing to this podcast. Today, we are back for a second round as we delve into my guest's new book, 1323. And we have a conversation capturing the essence of activism and art in Baltimore through the eye of an award-winning photojournalist. Please welcome J.M. Giordano. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for making the time. Welcome back, actually. This is the second time we've been able to.
I think second time.
So, and thinking at that first interview, because, I went back through the old questions to make sure I'm not asking those questions again. So in our previous discussion, you shared a bit about your influences in photography, and, it's been a little while since we've last talked. So, I think a lot of times our creative work continues to evolve. We encounter new things that kind of, interest us in different ways. I know that I've been influenced in different ways in doing this podcast over the years. Have there been any new inspirations that have shaped your most recent work? I see A Wound That Never Heals, and I see 1323. So can you talk a bit about that?
Well, yeah, so the wound work that, 1323 kind of encapsulated everything that I've done on all those series is kind of coming together. My main, like photography wise, main influences, like a French photographer named Gilles Perez and an Italian photographer named Paolo Pellegrini, who work specifically in black and white and really tell their stories in black and white. So, there's no color photos in the book. This is, and like my last book, it's strictly black and white, which is what I mostly work in. So those are the two big influences on this. And the difference like between this book and say the last one, this was, a lot of collaborative effort. There's 3 essays by activists, anti-gun activists in the book. Latrice Darnell and Tawanda Jones. Devin Allen edited it. So, it was more of a community effort to go through all these photos that I've taken in 10 years of, starting in 2013 with, spike in gun violence, and then the movements that came out of, literally came out of that year, that summer, all the way through until that are still going now.
And we're definitely going to tap back into that, explore a little bit deeper. But, I think as far as an introductory and a primer, I think that's going to be really good for folks to listen to. So I want to step back a little bit. And, you wear multiple hats, teacher, photojournalist, photographer, artist, all of these things. And usually when I see you, except for now, you're wearing a hat. I've always seen you wearing a hat.
Yeah, I just got my hair cut. I got my hair cut for the podcast. So
I did too yesterday.
I wanted to show it all. I didn't want to say anything. It was getting long, Rob was getting long. So
So in specifically in the sort of education side of things, and because we both kind of share that now, how, do you gather any perspective from students that you're working with in the, the academic side, the teacher side of things? These are the new creative minds. These are creative minds that are in the city that are, sort of maybe that next generation of photographers and photojournalists potentially that you're working with, imparting your knowledge on. Do you, get any perspectives from them or just any energy from them that supports kind of like how you approach your work?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I do actually. As a matter of fact, 2 of my students made a couple of really good continuity or sequencing, critiques in the book, and I added 2 photos based on their opinions of how it should flow, and it clicked. So I gave them acknowledgments in the front. So again, collaborative, right? Like I put this on 2 bulletin boards at the school. I teach at Baltimore School for the Arts. I put it on 2 bulletin boards outside of my room and went through about 15 iterations of it, moving pictures around, but always asking my students, what do you guys think of this? Trying to give them also some hands-on learning about sequencing when they, get to their books or get onto their bigger projects. So yeah, they they did have a voice somewhere in this process.
Yeah, I mean, that's great, and we're definitely going to tap back in on the collaborative nature of this book, because I mean, he even invited me down. I'm just a guy with a
Yeah, I
microphone.
know. I know. Yeah, if you want to take a look at it, right.
So
I'm a Libra. I can't decide on anything on my own. I got to ask like 25 people. Get.
air sign gang, that's just what it is. That's what it is.
Yeah, definitely.
So obviously, and I didn't know this initially. So you're a Baltimore native. I didn't know that. I don't know why.
Yeah. I'm Baltimore native, born and raised here.
So Baltimore obviously saying, Baltimore obviously has these different stories, some that
Mhm.
have been told, some that have been, waiting to be retold, rediscovered. Can you talk about some of like your past projects, like books, just approaches and arcs of photography or what have you, and like how they connect with 1323, and sort of what are some other narratives that you might be interested in exploring in the future? And I know it's a two-part question.
Yeah. So, I mean, each, it's kind of, if I get this next, there's a book coming after this. If this does all right, the publisher I'm with now, he said he would take a look at the next idea, which will come out of this, which is the uprising. I want to do a book on the uprising. All these are kind of interlocking, right? Like, we used to live at night book.
Hmm.
And my publisher in New York, she edited it down. And there are some scenes there. There's some scenes outside of the clubs and things. Nothing gratuitous or voyeuristic or exploitive by any stretch. But there is this like sinew. There is this tie-in between that book and this book, with everything happening at night. And then that's going to go through the next book, which is the uprising book that I hope to do. So yeah, there's going to be a thread between these three, these three books. It'll be like a trilogy almost. I like to call it a trilogy, if I could. So, and then the second part of the question was, I'm sorry,
No, that was
I got
actually
lost in the first part.
no, that's fine. Like, so I think you got the second part. In as far as like what narratives, what's that next narrative
Right.
that you want to explore, that you're curious to explore?
Right.
I guess like, and you got both of them now that I look at it, past
Okay.
projects as well. So I think I think we're solid on that.
Yeah.
That's good. And in a trilogy, that makes a lot of sense. Like, there are these stories that, as I was saying earlier, that we have a lot of different stories here. And, a lot of times that we get a piece of it, we don't get something that stretches, such as,
Right.
1323, like covering a decade,
Right.
we don't get things that are like
Right.
that. And even extending like how, if this, trilogy comes to pass, that
Right.
we're going from sort of this 10 years and here's the impact and how it connects in these other areas.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's kind of new. I didn't want to get too much into what the uprising book is, but it is different. It's not going to be just a picture book of the uprising. I'm hoping if it works out the way I want it to, it's going to have a lot more depth to it than just photos. None of these books, maybe the nightlife book, but at least these last two, they're not supposed to be like coffee table. Oh, what great photography type books. They're I try to make them a narrative,
Yeah.
On something, and I just realized, I guess about a year ago, going through all of my photos, that these groups came up after the spike in violence in 2013, which was only, I say only, but we had 220, I think, was our homicide rate for 2013, right? That was up. It was a spike from the previous year, and that's what brought me out to kind of focus on that. And then I stuck with the activist groups that came out of that year. So this is the year, 2014 is the year before the uprising, right? Before 2015.
Yeah.
So that was a big year for activism in the city. Of course, the uprising up the ante in activism in the city, and now it's kind of subsided, I think. Yeah. So
it's almost like looking at things of like, and I remember going through and seeing some of the images and the sort of sequencing, that it's like the where are they at now, the who's who of folks that have been around in activism. And I think seeing people who have really been putting that work in, that sort of boots on the ground out there,
yeah,
and pushing forth for, sort of change and sort of
right.
awareness around, a lot of the things that have been happening. People outside of here, if they don't have sort of those images and those reference points, they don't know what's happening. And I remember, during this sort of 10-year period, you always do almost the morbid thing. I would get on the websites and see like, all right, what's the murder rate at? What are these numbers at? And
Yeah.
and because I'm a data analyst, I'm digging down like, all right, how much of that was gun violence?
Right.
It's something to try to look at root cause and think through that. I'm like, why aren't people paying more attention to it? And then seeing people that are in very like sort of prominent roles, like you got the mayor, you got Devin Allen out there, you got D-Ray out, you got a lot of different folks that are out there that have been doing, the work and have like that track record.
Right.
So when they're speaking or they're being involved in this sort of collaborative nature in a book like this, it just rings true. It's not those sort of overnight activists that Kendrick Lamar mentioned.
Right. I mean, it's definitely not that. I mean, it did subside. I think the election of Trump had a lot to do with it. And then when Biden was elected, it kind of died down. I mean, unfortunately, it died down. And then COVID, there's factors. A lot of the younger activists, had kids or moved out of the city, so there was that aspect. And they were leaders in the movement. Once you kind of lose your leaders, it's hard to get them back, get that enthusiasm back. And I think that's a lot about what happened. But when it comes to the anti-gun violence, those like Baltimore Peace Movement, Baltimore Safe Streets. There's a new movement or new group that's just started by the mom of this kid that was killed a few weeks ago. And I just saw her on the news like 2 days ago. So it was so quick, but I picked it up because she's starting, a group of moms, which there had been, a group of moms against gun violence in 2014. She's starting one. So this, that particular niche of activism is still here and still very, very powerful in the city. I mean, look at Tawanda, 500th West Wednesday. Her brother was killed, by the cops after being beat up, I have a witness testimony in the book. I was there the night that happened, and I talked to someone who was at the scene who saw it all go down. And her voice is in the book, and Tawanda's still doing it for accountability. She's still out there every Wednesday, trying to get police accountability for this. So that's, that this like I said, this kind of niche of activists, they're still going strong.
Yeah. So touching back on that piece there, a bit, like being out there and capturing the images of things that are happening and sort of the emotion and sort of those charged moments, those deeply personal moments, such as the Tyrone West tragedy, comes with a significant weight of responsibility. How do you navigate that, like in your role as documenting and doing the sort of photography and building out this book, from the ethical and emotional complexities that are surrounding that? Because I would imagine it's tough.
I mean, it is, and I'm white, the white L, but I like I tell my students, and even with documenting these scenes, you need to be a human first and a photographer second. And also, it's like neighborhoods are like people's houses, their homes. You're invited in. Someone says, "Don't take a picture." Don't take a picture. A lot of photojournalists, white photojournalists, always fall back on that. Well, I have a right to be here. Blah blah blah. And I hate that. And also, when it comes to navigating, like especially with this book, um, you know, I wanted to make sure that there was a balance. And Devin did too, as the editor. We wanted to make sure there was a balance of, what was happening, the gun violence rate, the activist response to that, and also the joy that goes on at a lot of the activist events. We need to have joy in there as well as this pain of what's going on, 2, 3 in the morning in a lot of the city. So, getting the voices, getting the essays, having people from the community come in to look at the book, go over it, take a look at it, have their voices in there, was very important, because when you photograph violence or something like that, and this is just me because I know there's a lot of photojournalists who don't do this, it's not just being there. Like, for instance, I was invited to a couple of funerals. The first one I went to for Davon Akemi, whose cousin I met, and I talked to her back when he was killed 10 years ago, and in Park Heights. And I met his aunt at the scene, and she basically said to me, you people, me and the media, you come here and you cover this and then we never see you again. She's like, what good is that? She's like, I want you to call me tomorrow. And I said, yes, ma'am. Raised by a single mom, so I was like, yes, ma'am. It was like an order. I was like, I'll call you tomorrow. So I called and I asked if he had passed, and she said yes. And she invited me. She's like, the family talk. We'd like you to come to the funeral. And this is when I was with the city paper. So this was they knew it was for publication. They knew it was publication. And she said, we want you to document it for just the city paper thing. It's true. And I still I'm still good friends with Dee, his cousin, who was my liaison at Chatham Harris Funeral Home. She's in the book. And I check in with her probably once a year. We still talk. So, just doing that strengthened the bond with me, and her auntie, she passed away like 4 years ago, so a lot of people who were there for the funeral aren't there. And, but when it comes to like picking the pictures and, Devin, I went, and also shout out to Andre Chung, the photographer. I did a portfolio review with him just of this work, because I wanted to get an opinion on sequencing and things like that. So, we don't, there's nothing in there that's shown, you know what I mean? Like, even with, going to the funerals, there's no, there's no bodies, there's nothing egregious. There's nothing that I would hope would re-traumatize someone. You can do a lot without, a lot with less, Dee came by and saw the book. She thought, the whole section on Davon, she really appreciated that. So yeah, I mean, I think, it's hard to navigate, but it has to be done. I wasn't going to even send this to the designer or the publisher until I had everyone that I thought should come and take a look at it, and say, oh, okay, or try this, or why is that like that? Which I think so far, knock on wood, the reception has been pretty positive to it. Yeah. Because people know that hopefully that it's coming from a place of, showing, that, the reason we have some of the crime scenes and the investigative scenes in the book is because we need to show, I wanted to show what these activists are up against. They're not just there with hands in the air and placards up. There's a reason they're fighting. They're being peacemakers in a very, tough city to be a peacemaker in. I mean, we lost Dante Barksdale has 2 portraits in the book, and he was killed in an intervention, 6-7 months ago. So it's real. But he's, it kind of turned into a memorial for him. He's in the book, so he's not going to be forgotten for what he did. I mean, I hope, I hope, but it's very important that he was in there, and the portraits of him I think are, really nice. I think they're really, really good. Devin put both of them in when he was editing. It's spread out. They're not together, but they're spread out, So so that's how I kind of navigate. That was a long-winded answer, man. Sorry.
No. You're good. I think it adds depth and complexity, to the conversation. And a lot of times with, conversations like this around a specific project or a body of work, this is almost the director's commentary for it,
Yeah, I feel that.
Yeah, and and the cool thing is it's kind of helping me with some of my questions. Is like answering other questions. So I've been putting in new questions.
Okay, yeah, man, yeah, good. I got nothing. I'm good.
So with the collaboration component, with when there's collaboration, it makes me think of community, sort of getting that not the sign off, but sort of the input, right? And
right.
Providing an example there. So being within the community, whether it's the sort of arts educators, whether it's the photojournalists, whether it's just in the artists and creative community here, could you speak on some of the joy or the struggle in that and being part of that as it relates to being a creative in Baltimore, the joy or the struggle of doing what you do, but here in Baltimore?
I mean, yeah, it's tough, it weighs on you. And I try to, impress upon my students the importance of being empathetic and compassionate. I mean, with videos of all kind of stuff, everywhere all the time, it's hard to make a case for empathy anymore, but I try to. I mean, as best I can do is try, with teaching high school students that, just maybe they take like a small bit of that away with them. So I try that, I do think in a city like this, like I don't really teach, say fine art stuff. I mean, I teach from a social background. So hopefully they're like, the photographers we learn about, Gordon Parks, we learn about the Kamanya group, we learn about Stokely Carmichael in relationship to the camera and like, you know what I mean? Like real, social kind of photography as opposed to like paint peeling and stuff like that, So I hope that that's getting through. It's a challenge, but I think I hope that I'm getting through to them okay.
That's important, and compassion is huge. Like when I'm watching something, or even from the vantage point that I have, it's like it's like putting it through those filters. Does it pass this test? It's like I had an interview recently that it's coming out very soon where I had this question of, do I want to ask them this? There's a lot of controversy around this. And I was like, people want to know this. Yeah. So it's like, all right. And I want to know this as well. So it's like, all right, let's put this sort of journalistic thing on it. But there's a way of going about it where you ask someone in a really weird, sort of overly direct way without any nuance to it. Because we forget these days. They can shut down and you don't have anything. You don't even have the interview. But also, like, how do you balance sort of?
How'd they respond to it?
They kind of laughed about it a little bit, and it was like, no, we're aware, and they gave us gave me a good answer for sort of the situation. But also, it is the public facing answer too. It's just like, yeah, you're going to ask me about this. I know I have to ask the answer.
You mentioned about gift cards, didn't you? Was it Sheila?
It wasn't. But I will say this. I'm the same guy that has asked developers about gentrification and what are they doing around it.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's, but those are the people, they need to be held accountable. They need to be held accountable for that, for what they're doing to a lot of the neighborhoods and buying up real estate and putting these gray and, soulless boxes up for people to live in, like they need to, I was just driving around. I was kind of given a tour to a pretty big Hollywood celebrity who was working with a group of students in the city, and I was kind of her, not fixer, because but we were driving around Hopkins, the hospital, and she was blown away at the all those row houses gone, and they put up these like just soulless and not even real brick, it's like that sheet brick, it's not even real brick. And and she was just blown away by what these developers are doing to the city. So yeah, get on them, man. Good.
Yeah. You want, and I think people take a lot of value out of what feels real.
Yeah.
Sort of, we don't want to have the fabricated facade thing. It's just like, have a real question, have a real perspective, plant your flags out there, and just like, this is my standpoint on this particular topic, and how do you want to go about addressing it? And there have been times with that sort of pursuit of what's real and what's authentic, and that there have been folks that are like, hey, can I be on here? It's just like, I don't know if that fits, because it's a weird track record, or this is an ad to kind of help them maybe improve sort of that reputation that might fall into those sort of gentrification gray, sort of buildings, or it might be great for this platform potentially, but it's not good for what the goal of this platform is, or even good for the city. I remember having that conversation with Corey McRae about this, of like, you balance what's good for Baltimore versus what's great for Baltimore.
Right.
So let's put the art to the side for a second. Let's take a moment, put the art to the side for a second. Who are you as a person? What is your creative identity beyond your like work? Like, what are you into creatively? Like outside of photography, all that stuff. What are you into creatively?
Nothing. I mean, my wife says, like, I need a hobby. I'm like, well, I take pictures. She said, that's not a hobby. Like, I need a hobby. I mean, I read. I'm a comic book Star Wars nerd. Like vinyl, drink. It's for me. The photographs and all that. It's all in. I don't paint. I don't have any other creative outlets other than teaching, which I think putting together a syllabus and getting kids to look at different stuff and pull. I've amassed a pretty big photo book collection in my classroom. So I care about that. So that's, those two things. But photography is it. That's it. If anybody gives a eulogy or something, they're not going to be like, oh, he was also a great painter. Who gives a fuck? So yeah,
it's a great answer.
And I do collect photo books, so I do have a collection of photo books that I'm proud of. But again, that's photography, So
there's a part two to this. So we established earlier, like me, you're native Baltimorean, and I think places shape us, right? Whenever I travel to sort of those places for energy, I'm looking for a piece of Baltimore if I go traveling, whether it's for a few weeks, month, what have you. So has there been a place that you've traveled to for, more than like a day trip or something like that, that has had an influence on you creatively or artistically? Like, hey, you pull out the camera and you're like, that's really cool. I need to capture that. That's going to remind me of this situation, and something interesting happens to happen.
Yeah. It's going to blow your mind. I don't take cameras on vacation. I take my phone on vacation. I really, I'm very, I'm not a street photographer, right? I'm very project oriented. Like I hyper focus on a project or projects. So when I go away, I go away. I go on vacation, or in California or in Europe, but I don't take my cameras with me.
Yeah.
Any of them. I might take a film camera. Like we went to California, went out for a wedding. I took this vintage 50s Kodak camera and got some pretty good color stuff. And that landscape inspired me to do, I use expired film on this vintage camera. So like that, but I don't, when I go abroad, all the gear stays here. Because I tell my students, if I can't take a good photo on my phone with the way phones are now, then I might as well pack it in.
I hear you. That makes sense.
So, I'd rather have Google or whoever, or iPhone, store my pictures than me have 25 hard drives of shit that I won't want in a year or so.
Yeah.
I can put it on Instagram. I get that dopamine rush. You know what I mean? Like I got it all on my phone. I got it all on my phone. I don't need to bring out my big ass equipment. Meaning, I only have 3 bodies. I don't have a light kit or anything. I travel extremely light. But I mean, I did. Again, like when last time we were in Europe, my wife's family's in Holland. We took a road trip along the coast all the way up to by Scandinavia, and I did take one small film camera and because the landscape was so dark and gray, which I like, that I took some, really, really good, like 3200 speed, grainy black and white. But that's all I'll take is my small film camera. I won't take a lot of stuff because I try not to bring all that with me. I try like to get away. Like we go camping in Atlantic every year. And for the past 2 years, I've just been working my way through the Dune series, like not even bringing photo books, just like trying something that's not photography. So
yeah, one of the things I was able to get, I'm looking at I have this fanny pack. I'm a fanny pack guy. I have this fanny pack that has cool. I have a few lavalier mics and they're XLR lavalier mics and this 32-bit float. It's really small, like little box has 2 XLR ports. So if I feel inclined, it's like I encounter someone and I need to get an interview. That is most I'll bring with me. But bringing I got a really small board now that I can put in a suitcase. I have no interest in bringing that on a flight with me. It's just another bag. Right. It's just like, what are we doing? So, earlier this year, I went to New Orleans twice for interviews. And each time I bought either my small pod track, 4 input joint, or the person had their own studio space. So I'm just coming with quote unquote the talent, and we're making it happen. But those are those sort of rare, instances, and being able to travel light and be agile and kind of disconnect is important. I might write down an idea. I'm not quite there with using the iPhone for audio. Audio is kind of weak on it. But because I like having that XLR and I like being able to listen to it. But yeah, it's I think it's cool to be able to use sort of that talent as you were kind of touching on, I think, with if I can't do it with this iPhone, then what are we doing?
Yeah. I mean, pretty much. And now like the 15's out and that's even better. I have a 14 plus. So, I try to get the best because I do use it as a camera. I mean, I was out with my students today and I don't like to sit on the bench while they're shooting. We go outside and, I was taking pictures to show them after, at the end of class that I was doing it the same assignment I gave them, but use my phone, I don't have to have, it's a lot of it is storage. Like, I mean, if I, the trip to California, if I'd taken, my big camera out, my cars. I mean, it's like a terabyte. What am I going to, it's just of what? Of a road trip. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, you just take it on my phone and be like, remember this? I mean, it's great, so.
There's one last sort of real question that I have for you. And then I have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Yeah, sure.
So sort of the last one, it's more of the kind of pinning everything together as far as like final thoughts on 1323. I've read that there's a beneficiary for the profits of the book. Could you speak a bit on that and sort of the mission of the organization?
Sure. So in pre-order, I want to put that, if you order it through the publisher's website or pre-order, all of my cut, 100% of my proceeds is going to benefit Baltimore Peace Movement.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't speak for the stores, so that's why I have to put that in there. It's the stores, because the stores, they're going to carry it, but they buy it in bulk, or they buy 100 copies or something. You know what I mean? So, but buying it from the website and pre-ordering it through the website, my cut is going directly to. I'm not going to see any of it. I don't want to see any of it. Right to Baltimore Peace Movement. I think it's important because I don't think that as a photographer you should profit off of a subject matter that's very sensitive like this. I don't like that. I didn't take any profits from the nighttime book because it had some night scenes in it, and, the crime scenes in it, and that went to Safe Streets. We raised about $2,000 for Safe Streets. So I'm very big into making sure that the money goes to the right people who could really use it. So that's just going to benefit. And I mean, because Erica Bridgeford, Latrice Gann. They're Darnell. They're featured in the book. Like I said, Darnell and Latrice have essays in it. Erica's got like at least 4 or 5 photos of her working in it. So I thought that was a good organization to give it to. The city's not involved with them, so there's not like a bureaucratic thing. They're an independent organization. They need it. They supply water and they have cookouts and all. So there's money that is needed there for their ambassadors. They have their ambassador program. So hopefully it'll make a little bit for peace movement. So.
It's art is activism yet again. Because that's a real sort of tangible way. Like, people talk about these different things, but when it comes to sort of, I describe it as substantive, I did this is what the purpose of it is for, and this is where the funds are going for it. And in these instances, this shows the sort of the impact, all of the things that people say, but it's really, putting it in the sort of right place, as you touched on.
Yeah. Thanks. That's cool.
So, yeah. So what I want to do in these final moments, you've done rapid fire with me before, I believe. And so I got 4 of them for you. I've been adding them as we go along.
Okay.
So, and don't overthink these. So here's the first one. In one word, could you describe in one word, could you describe the best style of collaboration?
Equality.
What is your favorite day of the week?
Thursday.
Okay. What is the one song that really encapsulates you? Like if you had a theme song, if you will, like, you're a baseball guy, so it's just like
a walk-on song.
Yeah.
All right, this one threw me for a loop. I got so many, man. Like, what's going on? Then you don't believe the hype.
That's great.
I mean, there's like, I mean, actually, okay. So like recently, okay, I'm going to say Eric B and Rakim's Don't Sweat the Technique.
It's good. It's good.
I've been listening to like a lot of late 80s, 90s hip hop in the past couple of weeks. And like Rob Bass and Eric B and Rakim, they've been in heavy rotation,
The as they said in the, I think the hip hop documentary, the Mercurial Aquarius. So I was like, yeah, let's do
it. Yes, definitely.
So here's the last one. I have like a what is it? I think it's was it Chuck Nice? Nice and Smooth? Or
Nice. Okay.
It's like Dizzy Gillespie plays the sax. It's like, yes, he does.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's the last one. I've been playing with this, as I think, and my partner's mentioned this as well. She's like, I'm just looking for like the tiny glasses and the big scarf, like you're just going to these openings and you have sort of a fashion aesthetic, for what you do. What is your fashion aesthetic? What is your like clothing, like sense, your fashion sense, what have you?
Stale pale male. No, I'm just kidding.
I like it.
No, I mean, I always wear a black t-shirt. I mean, because black and jeans, is to remain neutral. Like, I don't want to be looking good when you know what I mean? Like, I don't even, I want to be in the background. I want to be doing my work. I have my vintage 90s Oriole baseball hat that became a thing. One of them, I've had 3. One of them is in the museum with my outfit from the uprising, with my jacket, my camera, my press pass, and my hat are all in the museum from Freddie Gray from the uprising. When I got jumped on by the cops, they took the whole outfit. The museum did. That's in the museum. So yeah, and people know. I mean, it's also, when I try to wear the same things out so people know who I am all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, back to the uprising, I wanted to do a positive story, so I went up to Gilmore and North and Penn North, and I wanted to, photograph a lot of the churches and things that were going on after, like the Sunday after the curfew had been lifted, and all the news trucks were gone, of course, but I'm at the paper, I'm like, we have to do something to balance this out, right? So I had a suit on, and tie, you know, I mean, it's church. I respect it. And his guy from across me, like, yo, fuck you, yo, CNN, blah, blah, blah. And he got closer. He's like, oh, it's City Paper guy. I didn't even recognize you, man. There's no, but because people get used to seeing you wearing a certain thing, and it's almost like a uniform in a good way, you know? So they know right away with my hat and the thing, they know exactly who I am and what it's about without being like, oh, who's that guy? Because it just changed, you know, and it's just a steady thing, you know? So it's always the black t-shirt. It's always the vintage Oriole, 90s with the orange brim, baseball hat, and my cameras and jeans. Like that's pretty much it, you know. And I wear like shoes wise. I mean, I wear Vans. I got Vans are really nice. I don't like wearing those like. Okay, I'm gonna go off on this real quick. New Balance, right? There is a weird ass Venn diagram of New Balance shoes between like MAGA Nazis and the hip hop community. Because I'm telling you, man, anytime you go to one of these rallies, all these old white guys with their guts and their pagers, they're all wearing New Balance, right? They're all wearing New Balance. And then like Shay just did a whole thing with New Balance. You know what I mean? So there's that community. And then there's this other, you know, I was at January 6th at the Capitol, and they all had New Balance on. I don't wear that. I don't. You know, those big old man they're like nurse shoes, big old man shoes. But yeah, I mean, it's you know, as long as it's comfortable. But yeah, that's my aesthetic is just a black t-shirt and baseball hat, nothing else usually.
Yeah. I tried to have the one where it's just like I tried to do all black Carhartt for a while and like Doc Martens, and I was like, eh. And then I found that I was even breaking my own aesthetic thing, and I was like, because you know, you've met me in person, you've seen me in person. Not too many people do that, by the way. Yeah. And I'm very hard to miss. So it's like, oh, who's that large guy over there? So I was like, this is not going to blend in at all.
See, people need to see you. They don't need to see me.
You don't need to see me.
You're out there. You're a personality, man. You're out there, you know? So I used to wear, I have vintage. It's weird. Like, so I didn't wear my baseball hat and my shirt to Freddie Gray's funeral. You know, it was a funeral, so I, you know, dress up a little bit, a tie, and I have like 4 vintage leather 70s jackets that I wear.
Wow.
Yeah. It's hard to find. I had a hard time finding ones for like people like our size, like bigger guys, but I got like 4 of them. So I wore that, and that's when I got pepper sprayed and shot at with the rubber bullets. So you didn't see me in the baseball hat and the green, you know, the green army jacket and the black t-shirt. It was at one time I didn't have time to go home and change, so I ran right after the funeral, you know, and I'm out there in shirt and tie and a leather jacket, you know, my shaft jackets.
So that's kind of it for the podcast. So what I want to do is, one, thank you for being on the pod again.
No, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, 100%. And secondly, you know, in those sort of, this is the plug moment. Where can folks get the book, website, social media, all of that good stuff?
Yeah. So the publisher is Knighted Life, NIGHTED, knightedlife.com. It will be in bookstores. It will be in Greedy, Atomic, Snug Books up in Hamilton. I'm missing one. Anyway, the Baltimore Museum of Art bookstore, it'll be there. So it'll be around. There'll be some events around it. You know, Greedy Reads is having their annual. And actually, man, I mean, if you ever want to do like a live broadcast, like a live podcast, they have that book festival every year, right across from 29th, next to Cahoots Brothers. Yeah, because all the authors are going to be there that whole weekend. It's the Lost Weekend Festival. Nice. Bird in Hand will have some, you know, so it'll be out, and we'll be doing events around it.
And there you have it, folks. I want to again thank J.M. Giordano for coming on to the podcast and sharing a bit about 1323 and art and activism in Baltimore. And I'm Rob Lee, saying that there's art, culture, and community in and around Baltimore. You've just got to look for it.